and salutations, fellow, whatever the opposite of true believers is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hello, false skeptics.
Well, it sounds like your average DC fan.
Ooh,
This is the Two Nerds Podcast.
Ooh, it's getting spicy up front.
Don't worry, guys. This one's the Snyder Cut. So much spice. We're only 30 seconds in.
You gotta leave some for the rest of the dish.
We're going to celebrate from here on out, though. Hey, but before we get to that, go to the description. Click all the fucking links. Buy everything you find there. If you give me money, you'll be cool like Rob. We love Rob.
No, it's done.
It's done?
It's done.
Okay. And thank you for joining us. So this is the year of top fives, and to kick that off, we are going with our top 5 favorite DC heroes who are not related to the Bat family.
Now, in the next few top 5s, you're going to notice that we have really chopped DC into like 19 lists. That's because we realized we had enough material for 19 lists, and the Bat family is so overarching and like if we want to talk about DC characters who aren't a part of either Batman's Rogues Gallery or the Bat family, we need to separate them into their own lists. So
I feel like they're different too, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we are actually talking about Bat family stuff. But that's not the discussion we're having right now. It's non-Bat family DC heroes.
Yep. Nothing to add there. All right. We're counting from 5 to 1.
Yeah, why don't you start with your number 5?
My number 5 is Calderon. I love him. I was mostly introduced to this character. No, I love that.
We just turned off the podcast from there.
His boyfriend would come hurt me.
I love him.
I was introduced to this character, and I love him in Young Justice. That's where I was really introduced to him as a character. I really like his arc in that series. I really like him both as Aqualad and as Aquaman, and his brief stint as a villain. And I think he's got a lot of potential. Crucially, I really, really like him more than Aquaman, like Arthur Curry. And I like him more than Garth, the Aqualad who is more famous. A lot more, actually. So, he's on the list. A big thing that you'll see as like a trend for both of us is there are a lot of characters we like, so part of this ranking, at least for me, and I think for White too, becomes who has the fewest versions we don't like.
Yeah, that can be a big part of it. I mean, it's also just like an impression that's left. This is less something to talk about in this podcast, but more in a future one about DC villains, and we'll get into that when it's time to get into that. My number 5, if you're finished, my friend.
Of course.
Is Ragman. And I will bet dollars to donuts. Most of you don't know who the fuck Ragman is. Maybe if you guys are fans of the Arrow series. Maybe if you guys just really love obscure DC heroes. I don't tend to like the big guys. Batman aside.
That will become clear.
Nothing against them. I think they're great, but I could take them or leave them.
You always sort of have gravitated towards the forgotten racks at the back of the comic store,
sure,
as it were.
Yeah, at least with DC. Now, somewhat in Marvel as well, with a couple of characters, but when we get to those lists, I'm going to be lying to myself if there aren't some Spider-Mans on there kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, we live in the nerd golden age now, so basically there are no such things as obscure comics characters anymore.
Well, yeah, we're getting there. We're getting rid of them. But Ragman is a cool hero who has like a costume and cloak that is made of the souls of the evildoers he has punished.
So he's like Katana, but cooler?
Yeah, and he can tap into these souls and get super strength or super speed or whatever.
Oh, that's a really cool concept.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him myself, but that's cool.
He can't tap into all of them at the same time. He's basically like a written to be a good guy DC version of Spawn.
Yeah, or like with him calling upon the spirits of various, I assume it's like various people. I punished this guy and he was super fast, and so
yeah,
now I can be fast. That's cool. That's cool. Very God, that reminds me of a different character, but I don't know who at the moment.
I believe it was an original character of yours, so that doesn't bear really talking about.
No, actually, but yeah,
okay.
that one too.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. I have not seen a lot of his adventures, but I really love the concept. I really love the character's personality. Rory, either Regan or Reagan, I'm not sure which it is. It's a written format, and I don't watch Arrow, so I don't know. It's a cool backstory. I like the other versions of his character as well. So
Very DC. Rory Reagan, the Ragman.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They do love that there. They do love them some alliterative names.
Hey, everybody does. It's superheroes, man.
Yeah,
that's
true.
my number 5. Not much else to say.
I shall move on to my number 4 then.
Let's do it.
My number 4 is Raven, sometimes called Rachel something or other, that changes. And sometimes Raven with a last name, but ultimately usually just called Raven. I mean, I'm the right age bracket. I think everyone who listens to the podcast knows where I was introduced to Raven. The Teen Titans series, the good one. And I won't be elaborating further on that. You get to pick which one I mean. So, I liked the character as a kid. I liked the character as a tween. I generally like goth chicks anyway, so visually she always had a leg up. But that's never really what made me super enjoy the character. I like, and to a certain degree empathize, as ironic as that is, with her struggle with keeping her emotions in check and how important it can be for her to do that, to keep her powers in check. I also, empathize with the fact that whenever Reagan appears in... Whenever, this fucking Ragman, still in my brain. Whenever Raven...
It's Ronald Reagan. He's one of Raven's main nemesis.
That would make sense.
I'm here to steal your magic powers.
Whenever Raven appears in something, you almost always have to bring up Trigon, who is a cool villain and a really compelling story for Raven as a character. So she's got built-in story narrative whenever she's used, which is always nice. That's all I really got to say about that.
Right. My number 4 is John Stewart, the Green Lantern. Honestly, if I was deeper into Ragman, he would probably be number 4, and John Stewart would be number 5. He's a complex character with depth, but like the silhouette, the bullet points are just a really easy way to get me to like a character.
Yeah.
He's a good cop. He's a good space cop.
He was a good soldier.
Yeah, he doesn't fuck around, and he just tries to get the good thing done as quickly as possible.
He does the right thing, and he does it by the book where that is still the right thing.
He's got big roadie energy, to speak of War Machine from Marvel.
I mean, I also like him. Spoilers, he's not on my list, just because there are other people I like more. But to me, and I've said this before in the podcast, John Stewart is the Green Lantern.
Yeah.
He's always going to be the Green Lantern. When you say Green Lantern, I think of John Stewart first. And I know for a lot of comics fans, that's almost blasphemy, but I'm sorry, I was a cartoon kid first, and Justice League exists.
I wasn't. I just like it better. So, I mean, that's that. He was a version of Green Lantern who was doing his job and not like...
angsting about it constantly.
Yeah. I like that he's just getting shit done. And, I mean, I'm not a huge Green Lantern fan, but it does allow for a lot of crazy, cool, interesting stuff within the
I really
DC
like
world.
the Green Lantern emotional spectrum.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
I really like the other parts of the Green Lantern story because it opens up a humongous world for, a whole universe for DC to exist in, space, and a whole different genre. But of all of them, John Stewart is the good one. Like, the rest of them are kind of, at the best, up their own ass.
Yeah. Let's move to your number 3.
My number 3 is Static, more commonly known as Static Shock. Virgil Hawkins, originally part of Dakota Comics, but he's DC now. I'm not gonna split hairs about it. I fucking love this A lot of these are characters I loved in cartoons as a kid, which is a thing I didn't notice till I was talking just now, honestly. But I really like... I mean, look, I was going to try and just make this sound... spread this out, take up more time, because we got a certain amount of time to fill on this podcast.
You know what? If we find out we don't use enough time, we can just slide another topic in here.
Yep. But...
I run the network.
At the end of the day, the reason I like Static is super simple. all Spider-Men are good Spider-Men. I just really like the story arc that Virgil Hawkins goes through, both in general of a put upon teen trying their best to balance a normal life with being a hero, and in specific with the very real sort of honest narratives that both the comics and the cartoon actually had towards trying to do that while also being in a more put upon community. I'll put it like that.
It's grounded.
Yeah.
You have to deal with his human struggles as much as you have to deal with his super struggles.
And that's really good. That's not good all the time, but it's good to have those types of characters there. Also, I just really fucking like electricity powers, man. They're cool.
I mean, notably that is a more Marvel
He's honestly one of the more Marvel heroes.
Yeah.
All Spider-Men are good Spider-Man. He's a Spider-Man.
Right. But it's nice within the world of DC for there to be exceptions to the rule. DC's usually about, icons. Gods, sure. Whereas Static is just a kid.
He's a really good hero.
Yeah.
And in most versions of him that exist in the future, he grows up to be a really great one. But he's struggling right now, and he's got some actual, very genuine struggles to deal with.
All right. Well, if that's all you had to say.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Steel. Having nothing to do with the Shaq movie. I've never seen it.
It gets a bad rap. It's not great because they had to.
It is starring Shaq.
And also they had to do Steel while cutting out all of the references to Superman.
Right. That's kind of like the Venom movie, managing to be pretty good despite cutting out all references to Spider-Man.
Basically, if you took the Venom movie and took out an actor as talented as Tom Hardy and put in an actor as talented as Shaq, you get Steel. I love you, Shaq. But...
Well, maybe I'll sit down and watch it. I like Steel. He's like a self-made Iron Man style, but less blasty and I'm a techno wizard and more, again, like Jon Stewart, let's go get this shit done.
Yeah, just more straightforward.
I love how he stepped up to substitute for Superman when Superman died.
And we talked about this a little beforehand, and in the comics, it was pretty much exactly what we talked about. He stepped up to fill the shoes of fucking Superman, and when someone asked him why, he basically went, "Somebody has to."
Yeah.
And that's such a good heroic sentiment.
It's so simple, and like we were just saying. DC does icons well, and that kind of behavior is so emblematic of what it means to be a hero, doing the right thing even when it isn't easy without a second thought.
Yeah, just DC, Marvel does human characters, I think, in general, better than DC. It does humanized characters in general better than DC. But if you want to boil down being a superhero to the absolute most essential formula, it's a simple sentence. The worst thing that's ever happened is happening. Everyone is running away. One person is running towards it. That's a very simple, iconic image, and you can see Steel doing it.
Oh, hell yeah.
And did you have anything else?
No, Steel is great. Let's move on to number 2 for you.
Okay. We are not going to fill 30 minutes on this.
Like I said, we've got other lists.
We do. My number 2 hero for DC is a little bit of a cheat because I love this character and I love a character based on him, but I like this character more, so he's the one who goes on the list. And that's The Question. I'm speaking of Vic, not the Renee Montoya Question, who I love anyway, but that's a very different character.
Yeah.
I like The Question partially because he's a fucking crackpot. He's a weird conspiracy theorist who just happens to be right. For all the wrong reasons, but he's right anyway. He's a very interesting take on essentially a combination between what if Dick Tracy was insane and what if every noir detective was a little happier?
Yeah, I kind of dig that. He definitely does have that old school Shadow what's the one guy's name? Phantom Stranger vibe.
Yeah, which is good, which is what you want.
Yeah.
He's very much a detective, very much, does mystery stories, which I love. And, I mean, the little plastic pieces at the end of your shoelaces are called aglets. And you know why I know that? It's because of the question. He's just a really fun character to watch, and sometimes it ain't gotta be deeper than that.
I don't expect we'll be doing a lot of this through the calling, but because of recent influences, I would now desperately love to see a live-action version of the question acted by Misha Collins. I think he would nail the shit out of that exact character with all of the brevity that it has and all of the gravitas that it has at the same time.
I would have a hard time casting the question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good shout.
Yeah.
That'd be hard. I mean, ultimately, it's just about, like, bearing... It's who can act through a mask.
That too.
Because you can't see his face.
No. Well, my number 2, speaking of people whose faces are in question, is Martian Manhunter. I fondly remember they came out with a DC game about 10 years ago. Maybe longer, because I'm old. And I remember looking at you and going, man, where the fuck are all the cool DC heroes? Who the fuck is Martian Manhunter and who even cares? And you were like, let me do you an educate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did him an educate.
And since then, I've looked more and more into the character, and I just really like him. I like the earnestness of him.
He has a backstory that's one step below at Donna Troy in terms of whatever the fuck it is this week.
Yeah. I like that his weakness in most incarnations is so fucking right there. Like, because that's the one thing about Superman that, like, when you're one of those cynical comic book fans and you're like, man, Superman, he's just too powerful. What's his one weakness? Oh, this incredibly rare shit that's nowhere. What's Martian Manhunter's weakness? Fire. Martian Manhunter, on a good day, you're going to take out Martian Manhunter with a Zippo.
Fun line from a comic book movie. Batman's talking to Martian Manhunter. When Martian Manhunter, the conversation has turned around to basically Martian Manhunter is Superman plus more powers. He's all of Superman's powers plus more better ones. Batman's response is, yes, but to take out Superman, I need a rock that costs $10,000 a gram. To take out you, I need to go to the corner store for a book of matches.
Yeah. He's basically Superman plus Vision. And
in terms of power set, in terms of personality, he's Vision.
Yes,
that
definitely.
is a great one-to-one.
Yeah, he's so curious about the world, and he's just fascinated by everything going on, and so personable. I like big dad energy Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, the one version of Martian Manhunter I'm not as fond of is the one in Justice League Unlimited, because he got very, it was addressed in storyline that he got very detached and he got very cynical about being a superhero to the point that he eventually retired and disappeared from the last half of the series until the finale. He went to go be a regular guy and he retired to China.
Okay.
But you don't find that out until the finale when some supervillains attack China and there's this one dude who just is suddenly Martian Manhunter and fighting them. But yeah,
I was in China this whole time.
He got very tense and detached, and that's he's stoic, but he's not an asshole. That's an important contrast.
Yeah, I like that about him. I think he brings a lot of fertile ground for storytelling, and his infinite power set kind of just lets you play with things. I mean, is that what I would design from the ground up? No, I like to keep things limited and themed, but...
And there certainly is no theme to Green Superman with telepathy and also shape-shifting powers. Oh, and he can turn intangible. That is a 12-year-old.
Probably a bunch of shit that I've forgotten.
There's absolutely 9 powers I know about and I'm not listing.
Yeah. But yeah, I dig him. His name's not great. Martian Manhunter, that's a little...
It's a relic of a bygone age.
It sure is.
And you're never going to change it now. But if he were a character that was made now, he would have... And somehow had the same powers, he'd have a very different name.
Yeah. All right, well, before we get to number 1, we have a couple of things to talk about for this podcast. First of all, so this is a DC Comics list. We're going to be doing a couple more DC Comics lists. What counts within this umbrella? Because if you go to Wikipedia and you look up DC Comics characters, you're going to run into everybody from, Batman, Superman, as you expect, to fucking... forgotten all the fucking names. Mr. Cotter, Who's the one that I...
Don Rickles.
Don Rickles.
Because for some reason, the person who does the DC Characters Wiki included the real-life people who show up in the comics in the same list as, Beast Boy.
Well, and, for some of them it made sense. For Mr. Cotter, for example, they did a limited-run series of comic books based on the TV show.
Welcome Back, Cotter.
Yeah, and then there's a couple other TV shows that had that similar theme.
Gabe?
Gabe
Cotter?
Gabe Cotter, for the actor Gabe Kaplan. The weird shit came in with specifically Don Rickles, because everywhere else it was like, okay, this links to the Sandman comics. David Letterman briefly had an appearance in Sandman. Don Rickles linked to his own Wikipedia bio. So I just assumed that Don Rickles is/was a DC superhero or villain. And I'm
Don
only
Rickles,
just learning
it's the second
about it.
one. He retired to the real world. He punched his way out like Superboy Prime and just decided to become an insult comic.
But more accurately, do we include Sandman in this? Do we include stuff like Transmetropolitan? Do we include things like The Watchmen?
Yeah, because I mentioned Question. Rorschach is based on Question, and he's a much edgier version, but I also like Rorschach a fair amount. You can tell I like a character when I literally dress as them for Halloween, which I have done with Rorschach.
Which brings us to another sort of contention that we had when making these lists that ultimately I don't think mattered for either of us, but it was...
No, it didn't end up coming up.
It was formative in whittling things down. Those characters who have ridden the line so hard between hero and villain, where do you count them? Do you count them what you preferred them as? And for a character like Rorschach, whose story is self-contained, is he a hero? Is he a villain? He just sort of is.
Yeah, it's an unfair categorization to put on the character. And there are a lot of characters like that. Notably, one of the ones we bounced back and forth about that I don't think ended up on any of our lists was Atrocitus, the leader of the Red Lantern Corps. I mean, he's a villain, but White makes a compelling case for him being, at the very least, an anti-hero at this point.
Yeah, he's had a lot of stuff where the Red Lanterns aren't looked at as the villains anymore. They put that much more on Sinestro and the Yellow Lanterns.
Because, he's a dickhead.
Sure, with his slender fingers. So we did want to mention Rorschach specifically because he's a wonderful character, fantastic. He just doesn't quite fit on any of these lists. And we do love the Watchmen. I almost had a couple of Watchmen characters on a couple of my lists, but
Comedian almost made one of mine.
Mm-hmm. I think I left mine in the honorable mentions of the other one. So speaking of honorable mentions, we do have a few shout outs we want to do before we get to those big final number ones. My dear friend, what are your honorable mentions?
Pretty short. It's basically all heroes I love that... There are other characters I like more, so they're not on the list. One is Wally West, The Flash. Specifically Wally West. Barry Allen's a boring shit. Bart West is that, but worse. Wally West. Wally West is the good Flash. He's fun. He's the only one who comes across as not just a fucking capricious deity. And much more so, this is my little nerd bitch out moment. Any person who claims Superman is too powerful but likes the Flash just got beat up in high school. That's all that is. You were just beat up in high school. You don't like someone who looks like a jock. The Flash is too powerful. The Flash is so powerful that he removes all tension from his stories. Not Clark. And Wally West is the only one who's human enough that you get kind of what you get out of good Superman stories, which is, yeah, sure, he's the Flash. He's the avatar of the Speed Force. He's going to solve the week's problem by running really fast. But it's his human problems you have to deal with. Notably, the Flash TV show did away with all the characterization for Barry Allen and just made Wally West and then scribbled out his name and wrote Barry Allen.
When I did an incarnation of the Flash, I gave him some sort of disorder. I don't remember what. It might have just been...
I mean, ADD would make sense.
Yeah, ADD or autism or something like that. I think it was ADHD. Maybe because I can relate to that. But, that was a focus of what was going on with the character. Yeah, I've got all this power, but I can't pay attention. I can't focus on things. I get distracted by doing fun stunts while I'm fighting supervillains. Because it makes my brain jollies happen. And it was good. I felt it was good anyway.
Next for me is Wonder Woman, who I love. She just got steadily bumped lower and lower on the list until she went off the edge. She's a great character, a lot of history, but just not. I don't like her that much, I guess.
She would have been higher up on mine, but there's just so much of her history that is.
This is actually a great example of sometimes it's not how much we like a character, it's how many versions of a character we don't like exist, and there are a lot of versions of Wonder Woman I do not like.
Pretty much just from the Justice League era shows, and then like comic books from the late 90s until now. I think she's still fine.
It's uneven in that time
Well,
frame.
yeah, that's fair.
Then Jon Stewart, for the same reasons he was on White's list. It's just he got bumped down. This one isn't. There are versions of him I dislike. He just genuinely got bumped down. And then lastly, Oliver Queen. Oliver Queen is the quintessential example of that thing we keep talking about because there isn't a lot of versions of Oliver Queen I dislike. Just the only one that's popular with anyone who doesn't like cartoons.
They're two different fucking guys.
Those are two different guys.
I think
One is a fun original character who has his own niche and is super interesting, and the other one is Batman, but not cool.
I think he's a decent character.
I don't.
Well, because he's biting the shtick of a guy you like a lot while pretending to be a guy you like a lot and not quite meeting either of those parameters.
Yeah, be fun Ollie or be Batman. Don't be discount Batman with Ollie's name. That is not cool.
There was one other person you mentioned that didn't make your list, and you didn't write him down, and you'll be sad at yourself if we don't talk about him, which is Jaime Reyes.
Jaime isn't on my list ultimately because I like his look. I like the basis of his story. I don't like many of his comics that much.
Yeah. Again, it falls under the Spider-Man rule, though.
Yeah, all Spider-Men are good Spider-Men, therefore Jaime Reyes is good. Yeah. It's just his actual comics, and there a bunch of stuff I talked really glowingly about before, it just doesn't hit the right note for me.
Sure. No, it goes off the rails pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like, his introduction is great, but after that... my honorable mentions are weird. First of all, Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld.
Technically counts!
Not even technically. She's just a DC character.
Oh, I suppose she is.
It's just a
My
weird...
brain literally thought of the Steven Universe character.
Oh, no. Very different character. Well...
No, not very different.
No, different from, as I gather, the Amethyst in that show. Although maybe I'm thinking of a different character.
Who
Regardless,
cares?
she's scribbled out the fucking name She-Ra.
Yes,
is more accurately what she is. But I think she's neat. I haven't seen a whole lot about her, but like I like the vibe. Like I could see that and go, yep, I'm into that. Plastic Man. Like he doesn't fit on my top list, but Jesus, he's every popular superhero.
You know what Plastic Man is? To relate it to something that if we have a wider listener audience who likes more popular modern shit, because Plastic Man's not super big in anything.
No, not really.
He's One Punch Man. He's completely OP. He's a hero for fun, and everyone should be very fucking thankful about that.
Yeah. He's add a little Deadpool in there, and you got it. I think he's cool. I feel like there was some scuttlebutt about him being played by Bruce Campbell at one point, and that would have been great.
Like 15 years ago.
Yeah, like a long fucking time ago.
Minimum.
I also have the question on my list for basically the reasons the boy said. I like the old pulp heroes.
He's a great standard bearer for the old pulp heroes.
He really is fantastic. And then I have listed Huntress and or Artemis. All of them, they're all good. I know they're not the same person, but cool, damaged, troubled bow lady, A+.
I mean, look, this is me talking. I'm not going to fight that statement. I mean, yes, true.
So why don't we slide right along into your number one?
My number one hero that isn't related to Batman in the DC universe. I wish I could have like 3 more qualifiers.
At this point in time,
yeah.
Barring that we probably have forgotten somebody.
So on and so forth. Just fucking terms and conditions may apply. Is Superman. Clark Kent. I fucking love Clark. I love most of the stories I read about him that are all well written. I mean, yes, in the hands of a untalented or uninterested writer, Superman is boring as fuck. In the hands of a malicious writer, he can be a very shitty character to have to deal with. both reading, in that sometimes you read a character who makes you want to close the book, and in universe. But in the hands of even a decent writer, Clark Kent's a great fucking character. He is a man. He is an aspirational figure. He is like less religious Michael Carpenter.
Yeah, he's that guy that we talked about.
He's not perfect. He has struggles. He has stuff he struggles with. How to best use all the might that has been given to him. But at the end of the day, everything's going to be fine because he's All Might. He's here.
Yeah. I like the archetype of Superman that is the god who is also a man. We see that a lot in fantasy fiction. Without going into too many spoilers, it's the thing in Dragon Age, especially if you play through Inquisition. A person with deific power, and compared to even the most powerful beings in the DC universe, he's there.
He hangs.
And yet he was raised as human. He walks as human. He has human emotions. He's not above it all. He's part of it all, and that kills him inside. And it's just so compelling. You can write such amazing stories with such a different perspective because he's not Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, he's not aloof and detached and honestly looking down upon humanity. He isn't that guy. He is at his core. He is the kind of guy who, were he not possessed of godlike ability, would just be a really friendly guy who's happy to let you borrow his truck.
Yeah.
He's just a good guy who wants to help. But because he's been given the power of God, essentially, he has so much struggle with how much of a personal life am I allowed to give myself? And how much should I help people? Am I going too far? Am I being a tyrant? And those are all really interesting questions that good writers try and tackle. And when they do, it is the best that comic books can be.
It embodies what DC means. That kind of motif around that kind of character. Or the duality, as is popular to, make them fight. That and everything about Batman.
Yes, there's a reason those two keep being the ones who want to fight.
Because they are the pillars.
They're great contrasting characters.
People like to edge Wonder Woman in there, but she's really just Superman again.
Yeah, she's just Superman again, but also really fine with murder in the right circumstances.
Yeah, she's just a different character. I don't think she's a pillar like that.
No, she's not. She's
sure.
Genuinely, she is much more of a god.
Yes.
She does, to a certain extent, have a very I can't get the word out. She patronizes mankind to all definitions of the word. She both offers them support and help and looks down upon them in a very real way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even the good versions of the character.
Yeah. Well, I think it's part of a good part of her character.
I think so too. It's one of her interesting flaws, but that's a very different person than the person Clark is. That's why they don't make a good couple. New 52.
I mean, most things New 52 did.
Yes, most.
Is there anything else you have to say about Superman?
I mean, lots of stuff, but I think I'll stop.
Okay. Surprising me a little bit.
Not me. I saw this coming.
And I might have to ask you for your input on that because I find that fascinating. I find my whole list fascinating. Divorced of Batman characters, I know I bat for the underdog. That's always been me. Mm-hmm. I like the odd man out. I find that more interesting than something that's been poured over 1,000 times. But at the same time, like I said about our eventual Marvel list, I'm not going to lie to myself. Those popular heroes are going to make their way on there. It is what it is. And yet here, at the top of my DC Heroes list is Swamp Thing.
Makes sense. Bog God. Bog God. Bog God. Bog God.
And I do love Swamp Thing. Some of my earliest memories are, also sitting on the couch watching The Flash. I don't give a shit about him. But sitting on the couch with my dad and watching the old Swamp Thing TV series. I think he's really interesting. And I appreciate his detachment as well in a similar way to Superman. Just, both the man who develops plant powers and defends the wilderness and fights evildoers, in a very 80s and before way, and also the being that he is now.
The incredibly detached from humanity, doesn't give a shit about the animals, is here to protect the green, the bog god. Like,
it's just fascinating. He's just the implacability of his existence. Those drawings you always see of him with zero expression on his face, hand curled inward, butterfly posed upon his fingertip. Like, everything about that, the wonder, the awe, the terror.
That's what good Swamp Thing, like modern Swamp Thing. I like classic Swamp Thing. I like modern Swamp Thing a lot more because a good interpretation of that when you do Swamp Thing, modern Swamp Thing well, it's as a guest character in another comic.
Sure.
And he should inspire that religious awe.
Yeah.
Like, he should be awesome in the original sense of the word. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do that. And he's one of the few characters that most writers seem to be they get it. So it works.
He's like the opposite of Slender Man.
Yeah. That's just a really good way to put it.
This cryptid, this figure, this character, this creature that is beyond our comprehension, that was once a man, who is just now out there. He is the liminal space. But so long as you're not fucking around, he's probably okay with it.
He's not benevolent, but he's not malevolent either.
I think Swamp Thing's super interesting, and I'm stunned you predicted that for me.
I didn't see him as your number one, but I wouldn't have tried to pre-guess him, but that he's on your list is incredibly unsurprising.
Who did you think my number one was gonna be?
I didn't. In the same way,
didn't guess that.
In the same way, I don't really like. I have these ranked, but like I don't think like this anymore. This is a gut feeling. I have no criteria. I have no on balance. I think I prefer this one to this one because I just put 5 on the list that I knew were the 5 and went, this feels rightish, and then moved on with my day.
Yeah, I mean, this might change tomorrow. We've got HBO Go,
HBO Max,
HBO Now.
HBO, the one that we can have without having cable.
We've got the HBO streaming service, and there's lots of cool DC stuff on there because that's where the DC streaming service went.
Yep.
So maybe we're going to watch a couple of DC movies and go, well, you know what? Fuck the question. I really like Calderon even more now.
I mean, that's likely.
So, it is what it is. It's just an exercise in exploring the things we love at a time where there hasn't been a lot of media to ingest.
Hopefully that time is ending now. We have more media available to ingest.
Right, but we will still have a year of lists for y'all. Top 5s, most of them. We're going to record one in just a minute.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it.